Hi, this video is part of In the Mood to Scrap video series on Two Peas in a Bucket. I'm Kristina Nicolai-White and I'm going to show you how I created this layout based on a mood board that I created via my Pinterest board. Some of the pieces on my mood board are there because of their sentiment, some because of the photo treatment, a few because of the colors, and several because of the treatment of font and design. Because I already had my photo chosen and knew what I wanted to scrapbook, it only took me a few minutes browsing my own Pinterest boards to find pieces of inspiration that I could drag into Photoshop and create a nice little collage that I could look at while I was scrapbooking. Before I started my layout, I opened up my photo in Photoshop so that I could add some different photo treatments and a title as shown in my inspiration piece to my photo. This took me more than just a couple of minutes, but it was really important to get this just right since it was a big part of my layout. I did this by creating a text layer on my photo and then playing with the size of the font. And then I changed the opacity of that layer to be not 100%, but more like 48%. At this point in time, I still was uncertain exactly how my layout was going to come together. I always do a 2-page layout with 8.5 by 11, so I always have 2 pieces of craft paper out laying down in order to kind of give myself an idea about what my composition is going to be. I didn't know if I wanted to use that big photo or do the little one, most likely the little one. And I always do these sketches. I didn't always do them in the past, but in the last couple of years, I've given myself a little bit more leeway and a little more room and trying to save myself a little bit of time and giving myself an idea about what I want my composition to look like. So you can see that I'm just doing a lot of different sketches with on notebook paper and trying to determine if I'm going to do a big title or if I'm going to do a little title on that other side, the right side of my layout, corresponding to my big photo that I'm going to put on my left. I do quite a few sketches, really giving myself enough options and ideas. At this point, I wasn't certain exactly how I was going to use confetti, if at all. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do a string of hearts or if I wanted to do a string of stars or confetti hearts. I did know that I was going to do something and that I was going to make it very colorful and hopefully surrounding the title that I put on the photo. I did know that I wanted to use the quote on my inspiration piece, "Do small things with great love," and that I was going to have to do something on my own in order to accomplish that on my layout. I created the inspirational quote title on my silhouette in a 5 by 5 inch square. It took me a little bit to get this just right. After a few test cuts, I've got it. I've decided to stick with a natural, neutral colored background for this layout. I really wanted to use that October afternoon polka dotted midway paper, but I didn't have enough. So I always start with my craft. It's a really nice natural landing base for me. And then I stuck with the stars after going through several different kinds of grays and naturals to choose from. I also like the stars as they were on my mood board because they lend themselves to my feeling that my daughter is a star when she does this dance on stage. I then grabbed a whole bunch of papers from my recent stack of papers used, as well as some little bits and pieces of scraps in order to complete the rainbow of colors that I wanted to use on this layout. I'm all set to start laying this out, and I bring all of my pieces together. I have here my title that I created with my silhouette. My first cut I made some mistakes with, and I'm really glad I did a test cut and I had enough vellum to do this again. As you can see, I ripped it when I pulled it off of the sheet. So I'm really glad that I didn't cut it a second time. You can see when I created it that I wanted to use very similar fonts that were shown on my inspiration piece and to have like the numbers and the letters, the insides out. As I'm laying this out now, I want to make sure that I'm going to leave myself enough space because I want to do a heart cut out as the negative piece to go next to the title. I do this in a strange way. Actually, I do a small cut and cut it in the width that I know I want it to be. I do a lot of things eyeball versus actually measuring things out, which is funny since I actually stop and do a sketch. But as you can see, I just kind of eyeball things out and then make a mark on my cardstock as exactly the size that I need it to be and cut it. I keep going back and forth and measuring and cutting until I have it exactly the size that I want it to be. Once I have that all set and measured exactly as I want, I'm going to lay it down and do a small drawing of what I want the heart to look like. I really like my hearts to be imperfect and kind of lopsided and rather primitive, so that's what I've drawn here. And I'm going to then just cut it out simply using my scissors. You'll note I use a different kind of scissors. I use a surgical scissors, and that's what I've used my whole scrapbooking life and actually my whole life. So I love the sharp and precise edges of a surgical scissors. So I'm just going to use this really quickly to cut around my pencil drawing, just to the outside of it. I'm not really very precise, nor do I really care if I've cut them a little incorrectly. I kind of like it to be a little off center and a little asymmetric. So I'm okay with that. I may just clean it up here or there just a little bit in order to make it fit just so onto my layout. I find that once I'm finished doing this, that I actually have to do just a slight bit more trimming on the side in order to make it fit just perfectly in the space that I've planned for it. Once I've got that just so, I'm happy. I've moved things around to exactly where I want them to be, and then I'm ready to get started with the next piece. I've chosen tube arrows, white arrows that I've previously cut on my silhouette that I just have hanging out on my desk that I want to put on here. I'm not exactly sure how I want to put them yet. I know I'm going to do my journaling down in that right-hand corner, so I'm just kind of leaving them there and moving things around while I'm thinking about, okay, do I really like the way this looks, and gathering the rest of my supplies. I've chosen this aqua teal paper as my main confetti paper to start with. I just grab a really simple, easy office hole punch to start punching out things and letting them drop as they fall. I'm just going to start randomly throwing them on here to see what I like. I'm not quite sure yet exactly how my rainbow is going to go, if there's going to be a rainbow. I've cut out a few hearts because I know I want to put some hearts on here. I'm not quite sure yet exactly where I want them to be and how I'm going to want them to live. I've previously punched out a few other punch holes, and so I'm just going to start laying them on here and moving them around, pushing them around. I'm still not quite sure exactly what I'm going to do. I do know that I want them to be kind of in a rainbow order, so at this point I'm kind of deciding, I'm going to push all of the turquoise down to this end and all of the pink over to here and kind of get them in a rainbow. I want a big cluster of dots here. I want this to be a lot of confetti. I want it to overlap. So I'm going to punch as many as I can, but not as more than what I need. So that's why I'm punching them as I go rather than creating a huge pile of them ahead of time. I don't want to have too many because then they might get lost and I won't know where they're going to go. As I go through and punch these dots out and lay them out, I realize that I don't have enough differentiation in my paper colors. So I do eventually grab other papers so that I can have a darker red and a deeper pink and a little bit more of a green and a darker blue so that I can create a wider variety of rainbow colors. So I get much more depth in here. Now I want to have a lot, but not too many, so I can just continue to punch them and move them as I need them, and creating myself a small pile of extras just in case. But as you can see, I'm going to cut out myself a small bit right here because I know I only want a few of those pink ones. So rather than just punch the whole paper, I'm just going to take a little bit, punch as I need. I kind of like watching them fall on my layout. It kind of brings me a little bit of joy. So I'm doing that too while it's just punching on there. And then I'm going to actually move them around with my fingers and put them in the places that I want. At this point, I'm just going to play for a while and continue to punch things out and move them around. Nothing's adhered yet. I'm still just kind of playing. I haven't quite decided if this is exactly what I'm going to do or if there may be some last minute decision, but I am pretty certain that I'm going to continue working on this. I will also cut out some hearts to bring a little more interest in some of the better colors that I want to stand out and to help convey the message that she is dancing with her whole heart. At this point in my process, I'm almost ready to start adhering things onto my layout, and I just want to make sure I have everything down, so I just go ahead and pencil in the journaling lines that I'm going to use for my journaling in the right corner. Okay, I'm ready to finish this layout now that I have everything laid out. So I grabbed some of my extra tools and my adhesives, and I'm going to start laying down my confetti. Oops. I just realized I haven't adhered down my photo yet. That was kind of silly of me. I got kind of excited. So I'm going to use my favorite adhesive. It's this Scotch adhesive. I really like this one a lot, and I continue to use it all the time. I'm just going to make sure I put enough adhesive on my photo since it's rather large. Once I've got that down, then I'm going to start putting adhesive on all of my confetti dots. I like to use a liquid glue stick for doing this. It takes a really long time and it's kind of tedious, and I do have a little bit of glue on the end of my finger as I'm going about, but I want to make sure that I get each one adhered down in just the right place. I know that I don't want to just have confetti, that I want to use some of these really great little brads and extra pieces in order to give this a little bit of interest and a little bit of dimension. I've pulled out these different brads from My Mind's Eye and October Afternoon. I think I like this Midway brad from October Afternoon, so I'm going to pull it off of its backing and lay it on my layout and just kind of play around and see if I like it. I end up not using it as it is kind of large, and I felt as though it took away some of the attention from the larger hearts, which I were hoping would be the more center of attention. So I end up not using this large one, but I do end up using quite a few of the little ones. I do like the added dimension that it gives. I do end up using some wood veneer and in addition on this layout, as well as the brads. I've got these from Studio Calico. I've got the asterisks and the hearts and the stars. I end up just using the stars on this layout as it repeats the star background paper that I've used and repeats that element and how I feel. I like to do that in my layouts. I like to repeat the hearts and repeat the stars to extra add to that feeling that I have as I'm doing it. I've also decided that some of these are laying down too far and not quite as clustered as I want. So I'm going to move them around a little bit and maybe even go through and add a few more so that they're more clustered towards the photo and get less down below. I don't want them as wide as I've got them here, so I'm going to peel them off and move them around a little bit. For the time being, I have things as I want them on the left side, so I'm going to start adhering things on the right side. I know that I want these two pieces exactly as I have them, the title and the heart right where they are, so I'm going to go ahead and just adhere my heart down. It doesn't take much. A little bit of adhesive, that's all it needs. I don't even put any in the center. I kind of like that it might stick up just a little bit there at the point of the heart. I haven't quite figured out exactly how I'm going to adhere the vellum, so next I'm going to take care of these two arrows. I laid them down as I had them originally the first time, with the one with the larger tails at the top, and then decide that I didn't really like it as much and kind of wanted to give that one a little more space, so I put that one down in the bottom and put the thinner one at the top. A small bit of adhesive on each one of those, and just like that, I've got them exactly where I want them. That was pretty easy. Next, I'm just going to kind of play around with more of these hearts and stars and confetti that I want to carry over from the other page onto this left side. I kind of want the feeling to overflow a little bit to make the pages a little cohesive. I usually do that with my photo, but I didn't this time because I didn't want to cut any of the photo off. If you look at the original, in the beginning, I did have some of it kind of overlapping a bit. I decided not to do that. But I have decided to add confetti over to the side where the heart is. I punched a whole bunch of extra punches from before that I'm now going to just drag over and kind of play around over here. I like that it conveys the same message and pulls that feeling and the colors over to that side and gives the layout some balance. And it really makes the two sides cohesive. I'm just going to kind of play around here for a minute and see exactly how I want them. And I decide that I'm going to do a little bit of a rainbow effect, but not quite the same. I've decided to go lighter on the confetti in this corner. I want there to be a connection to the left side and show that same feeling and rainbow and the connection and the confetti, but I just don't want it to be a focus point. So in order to keep them connected, I've added the confetti in a smaller way than I did on the other side. It's time to adhere down that vellum. What I'm going to use is a glue dot. I want to try and hide it though. So I'm just going to put it in a far corner up there where I think I can hide it underneath a little bit of confetti. I like that. I don't want people to see that how I adhered it down. And I know if I put it there that then I can put a piece of confetti over the top of it and it will look as though it is part of the composition. I'm going to do the same in this corner. Like I did on the other side of the layout, I'm going to add a couple of elements onto this side as well. I'm going to use some of these enamel dots from My Mind's Eye. These are wonderful and so popular right now and trendy, and I love the three-dimensional effect that they give your page. So much interest and fun and color just in a little tiny dot. They're wonderful. Using these also helps me add a little bit of extra color that I didn't use in the confetti. So perhaps I'm going to use a lighter green or maybe a yellow or a different color red than what I would have used in some of the other things. So it just kind of helps add a little bit of the rainbow effect, and I really like that. I can add extra color to it without adding another dot in the same way. I really like the three-dimensional aspect of these. I like that these also help me disguise a little bit. That's where I put those glue dots underneath that vellum. I'm going to keep playing with this a little bit. I really like the idea of bringing in some of this wood veneer again, like I did on the other side. I realize that this vellum is still not quite sticking down exactly as I want it to, so I'm going to add a glue dot there, but first I'm going to see if it looks good to have something over the top of it, and I decide that I like this wood star there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a glue dot underneath there, and then put the wood star over the top to cover up where I have the glue dot underneath the vellum. I'm okay with the rest of the vellum not being adhered down. As long as I have at least 3 points where it's adhered, I'm good. I tend to use this liquid glue on my wood veneers, but I also could have used a glue dot. They also work really well for me. Upon further thinking about this, I decided to go ahead and add some other brads on this side, like I did on the other side. Like the enamel dots, I like the three-dimensional aspect that it gives to my layout. I really like the latest rounds of brads that have come out from most of our manufacturers. The ones from My Mind's Eye in October Afternoon and many others lay really nice and flat on your page. I'm just going to go ahead and add this one more brad to this side of this layout. That way I have one in each of the areas in which I added confetti to the right side. At this point, I'm ready to add my journaling to my layout, but I'm not quite sure exactly what I want to write. So I tend to grab a piece of scratch paper, usually what I did my sketch on, and just kind of write out my thoughts. It may not be exactly in journaling format. It might just be the things that come to mind first, and I'll put them together later. But I like to jot them down, my feelings and my thoughts about what it is I'm trying to convey on this layout before I go ahead and start my journaling. Once I've gathered all of those, I may do 2 or 3 different renditions to get exactly the right wording before I go ahead and put it on my layout. At this point, I'm pretty sure I know exactly what I want to do for my journaling, and I'm ready to go. I've gone ahead and drawn out the thick lines in which I want to do my journaling on. Then I've grabbed my favorite journaling pen, which is a smaller fine point. I'm going to test it first to make sure that it's fluid and the ink is coming out properly before I go ahead and write my journaling on my layout. I like to do everything in my own hand, and I want to make sure that it looks good. I don't ever want my kids to forget that I made this layout for them, so I always use my own handwriting when I do my journaling. I really feel it's special. Once that's completed, I feel like this layout is almost done. There may have been a few more things I added here and there, a wood veneer dot or an enamel dot here or there, but it's pretty much finished. Thanks so much for watching and sticking with me to see how I was inspired by my mood board to create this really fun layout about my daughter. Please be sure to watch all of the other layouts in the In the Mood to Scrap video series at 2peasinAbucket.com.